Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome to Life Planning 101. This is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here in the great town of Eastland, Texas, where we are having the most beautiful spring ever. Not to brag, all those northern states, I think you're hotter than us for the first time and I don't know when. But with that being said, we have an incredible episode today. I'm so excited. I've been excited. I've almost blurted this out a couple of times on the show already, because this is just something I feel like in our life planning that we don't have a good way to do this. And so when this lady came up to me off of LinkedIn, she listened to the show and she introduced herself and what she did. And I said, wow, this is amazing, because this really is a missing component to help people live life on purpose. And that's what we're all about. And so I want to introduce someone special with us today, Kate Hufnagel, and she lives in, she said, a not so sunny state of Colorado, but the president is there speaking today, and hopefully we won't have any fighter jets be flying over our show. But Kate, thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate you.
Angela, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast today. Like you mentioned, today is the United States Air Force Academy graduation. We've got lots of activities going on, and I'm really excited to talk to you about legacy planning and all of the pieces and parts that come with it, because in today's digital age, it's a lot more complicated than it used to be.
Yes, it is. I was reading something recently. It said, when I'm going to do the reading of my will, I think I'm going to go ahead and have my attorney do it this way. To my loyal estate planning attorney, I leave my children all my accumulated success in life and all the complexity that comes with it and all the legal fees it will create. So it is really true. And Kate, last time we were on, you gave me a statistic about how many hours it used to take to settle an estate, and then how many hours that has climbed to today because of just the digital aspect, the digital world we live in, and things getting more complicated, not less complicated. What was that time that you gave?
So the latest stats, which are now 5, maybe 6 years old, come from Estate Exec, and they measure that it takes on average just under 600 hours for someone to settle an estate. Wow. And the estate attorneys that I have been talking to over the last couple of years are in unanimous agreement. And when do you ever get attorneys speaking all the same?
Never.
and they're saying, you know what, Kate, that 600-hour number is actually low, and it is really low because of all of these digital pieces and parts that make up our everyday lives today. So unfortunately, that number is going up dramatically. And the other number that I have been hearing from estate attorneys is that up to 5% of the estate's value can be spent in fees, whether that's attorney fees, late fees, because you didn't know about a bill, interest charges. And I don't know about you, Angela, but I have worked really hard to create my financial legacy, and I want every single penny, heaven forbid if something happens to me tomorrow, I want every penny to go to my loved ones. I don't want to go in to pay for an attorney or paying a late fee. I never miss a bill when I'm alive. Why should a bill be paid late when I'm not?
Right. Absolutely. And it just brings to mind people that name their responsible children as their executors or trustees. And I'm thinking, all you're doing is leaving a legacy of pain if things aren't set up right. And the funny thing is, so in our business, what we see is that people say, well, I've got my legal documents, I've got everything there, so it must be good. I must be in good order. And of course, we do what we do, and we start digging around a little bit. We're mainly looking at titling of assets and making sure we try to avoid probate and all those things. And no, I don't know, probably 9 times out of 10, it's not correct. It's not been done. So yes, the documents are there, but the mess is still there with it, right? And I know what you do is adds another level of complexity to that, because yes, think of how many online logins and online bill pays and online things you have set up, and who knows about that? How are they going to handle that when you're gone?
Well, absolutely, because, not too long ago, we got these things in the mail called a bill. And today, so much of all of that is done electronically. So if you don't have a hint or a breadcrumb or access to, say, a loved one's email account, how in the world are you going to even know that there's a bill out there that does need to be paid or an account needs to be closed, right? You're not getting that physical, tangible reminders just that we used to get, just up until a few years ago.
Exactly, exactly. So I could get off on tangents all day long because I think what you do is so powerful, but I think understanding who you are is really important for our listeners. And you have an incredible background. You've worked in technology, over 25 years,
That's
and
right.
NASA, Central Intelligence Agency. I mean, this girl isn't kidding around when she knows what to do with technology. And I think that's an incredible background you bring to the table. And then, not only that, but just your passion behind it. So you just quickly, tell your story, why you do what you do, and what you see is the biggest importance of that.
Oh, well, thank you, Angela. So like you mentioned, I've worked at some rather cool places, a bunch of lettered organizations like the CIA, also supported a couple of other intelligence agencies. I worked at NASA when I was working on my master's in aerospace engineering. But today, I am running a business now called the Digital Wrangler. So I'm an estate organizer, which is really different than an estate attorney. But I have kind of been obsessed, for lack of a better word, of protecting my own financial legacy, probably since I first read Susie Orman's book, You've Earned It, Don't Lose It, back in 1998 when I got my first
book.
Yeah, when I got my first big girl job, as my bonus daughter calls it.
Yeah.
And so when I stepped away from my high-tech career a couple of years ago, what I embarked on in creating my company is that I want to help people organize their important life details. And there's so much more to that. So oftentimes I'll educate individuals and families on what makes up our estates today. And like you talked about, Angela, you're guiding your clients and reviewing their legal documents, right? And that to me is traditionally what's called, well, I'm getting my affairs in order, right? You're putting pen to paper, writing down what you want your wishes to be. I want so-and-so to get the house, so-and-so's getting the ranch. My cousin who I haven't talked to in 20 years, maybe I'm giving them, the vacation house or whatever that may be, or maybe I'm leaving everything to Walter the pug, right? And that's all great. Like, we need to have all of those wishes legally documented. But in today's modern world, we need to go a step further and provide our loved ones a whole myriad of other information. So I'll just pose the questions with regards to our legal documents is this: you have worked really hard with your attorney to put your wishes on paper. When I work with individuals, I then ask them, okay, do your loved ones know what legal documents you have? Do they know where to find them? And the kicker, can they access them, or will they be able to access them when they need to? So if you have those documents in a safety deposit box, have you worked with the bank to make sure that someone has signed a signature card with the bank to ensure they're going to be able to get into that box with ease? I don't want you having to go to an attorney to draw up some sort of legal action letter, right? If you have them at home in a fireproof box, like so many people here in Colorado do because of our threat of wildfires, will your loved ones be able to find either the key or the combination to that lockbox? So those are the types of things that I work with when it comes with working with my clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, we talk about that all the time. We actually put those items on the agenda. Where's the location of your original legal documents, right? And it's really important. So a lot of clients actually want us to keep a code on file or keep a password or something to that nature so that they can say to their kids, just make sure you call Kennedy, because it's really important. And that's things you just don't think about. So again, you are adding so much value. Just appreciate you. Now, I know when we come back, you've got some really incredible stories to share with our listeners on what will make their lives easier and kind of how you do your process. So more when we come back. You're not going to want to miss the Digital Wrangler right here on Life Planning 101. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. And everyone knows that we are not attorneys, but we do something called legacy planning to help people live life on purpose. So important, because a lot of people just go to an estate planning attorney and they think they know what are in their legal documents. And we've actually had this experience sending someone to an estate planning attorney. They think they got this in their legal documents. We get the legal documents back and we read them, and it doesn't even look like that, much less are their affairs in order? Because having your legal documents and having your affairs in order are two different things. If you missed the first segment of the show, you need to go back and listen. We have a very special guest, Miss Kate Huffnagel, the digital wrangler that is here helping. Really, I asked her last time we talked, what is her aspiration? What does she really want? What's her big, hairy, audacious goal, so to speak? And she said to be a thought leader. And I think that's exactly what she's doing, because I've yet to come across somebody that does this. And she is going to be a strategic alliance for Kennedy Financial Services to help us tidy up and put a bow on our legacy planning process. So I'm so excited about that. And Kate, I know you've got some incredible stories to tell us that, just talks about how making people's life easier and some of the things that you've seen that, people need to be aware of and they maybe don't even know that they don't know.
Oh yeah, there are so many things that in this day and age that we take for granted, right? We love technology because it makes our daily lives easier, right? I can Venmo money to a friend or a relative in a matter of seconds. I can pay my mortgage or rent from my phone. I can video call with loved ones, and I can connect with people back from college from 25, 30 years ago on social media. And just like chatting with you today, Angela, right? We're using technology to help us with this conversation. So we love technology because it does make our lives easier and more convenient, and it saves us trips, right? We can even get groceries delivered to the house now. But if something happens to us and we're, say, laid up in the hospital for a couple of weeks, or heaven forbid, worse, unfortunately, technology, not to mention the data privacy policies associated with technology and those endless pages of terms of service agreements that we really don't read, but we agree to them anyway.
Oh, what are we agreeing to?
Right? All of those things, whether we realize it or not, unfortunately can work against us when we are not around or we're not able to help our loved ones. So one of the things that I am really passionate about is kind of going on the speaker circuit of educating individuals and families. I've now even given a couple of talks to small business owners. I'm going to go up to Denver tomorrow and give, I think, my third one in just as many months on how technology, unfortunately, is a complexity multiplier when it comes to like our afterlife or taking care of our wishes. So one of the things that I kind of explain to people is, let's start with our devices, right? We pretty much live in the day and age where our phone is like attached to our hip, right? If I don't have it, Angela, I don't know about you, but I almost feel like I'm naked. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, did I put clothes on? Like, I don't have this phone because like it's just kind of like an extension of my being.
Yes.
And I know you've talked about in previous episodes about I can't remember your snazzy Angela-esque
Angela-isms.
Angela-isms.
Yeah, the only reason people listen to the show is because I mess things up all the time. So I'm pretty certain they're just waiting for it. What's she gonna say this time? So it's okay.
But there was that episode where you were talking about like if you pass away on vacation in a different state, and then your loved ones have to bring it,
get your body
home,
back. Yep.
Right. And you've got to pay taxes to states, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, holy camoli, these are things that we don't think about.
No.
So when it comes to our phones, my husband and I, after spending many years together, we finally got married a few months ago, and we were back east in January celebrating with family and friends. And I had an opportunity to meet some of my husband's high school buddies, and I was really kind of prepared for like the onslaught of like, are you good enough for him? And instead, I got such a loving and supportive group of guys. And I was telling them what I do. And one of them says, holy camoli, Kate, I've got to tell you, he's like, I've got this younger gentleman who works for me. In the fall, they had a relative pass away. And so Dan proceeds to tell me a story of how this gentleman, I don't know, let's just call him Rick. Rick and his family had to beg the funeral home director for access to the loved one's body. And why do you think they had to do that?
Yeah, it wasn't documented properly.
Yeah, they needed to get the fingerprint to unlock the individual's cell phone. Now, I don't know about you, Angela, but like you were talking about in the previous episode, there are a lot of like rules and regulations surrounding dead
Yes.
bodies.
Yes.
And so it's remarkable that this funeral home director let them get that access. I think that's actually kind of rare that this individual did that.
Yep.
But it proves or tells the story as to why it is so important that someone have access to your phone. Now,
Yep.
do they need to have access to the phone like right now? Certainly not, right? That is your personal
Right.
decision.
Right.
But please leave at least some breadcrumbs behind
Yeah.
where they can find that passcode to your phone, not to mention your laptops.
Absolutely.
What have you got, an Apple Watch now? Like all of the devices, and those devices, I mean, we all know, like they are not cheap,
No.
right?
It's like a
So-
car.
Exactly. And so, like a car, those devices are a physical asset,
Mhm.
right? Going back to like the traditional estate
Mhm.
definition.
Mhm.
But in today's world, they're also a digital
Digital
asset
Yes.
because of those passwords. And then not to mention, they just like everything is on your device.
Yep. We work with so many farmers, ranchers, good old boys. We're from Texas, right? And so a lot of things are done on a handshake. I mean, I actually did a handshake deal a couple weeks ago with someone because they've got a heck of a mess going on, and in their right mind, they couldn't pay us. And I thought at the end of the day, if it ends up being pro bono work, I can sleep at night. But I knew that they needed help, and there was not anybody else out there that knew the people we knew to help them. So I did a handshake deal. Right. And so we live in that world. And sometimes we think, oh, well, that would never happen to my family. They'd let them in, they'd let them do that. Well, we also go to Vegas every single year to the rodeo. What if something happened there? They sure as heck aren't going to help you, you know? And that's what we don't think about is we think about living in these small towns and we're kind of sheltered, but that's really not the real world. And Apple is anything but small. Anything that we have is anything but small. And it's so important for us to realize that we've really got to take care of this, because if we don't, we really are leaving a legacy of a mess. And that's stressful. Just think about your spouse, much less your children coming into that and having to deal with that. So very powerful words, Kate. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I know Kate's got one more story, and then want to tell you about what she's offering Kennedy Financial Services clients, which is really exciting. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson, and I am with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services out of Eastland, Texas. And we have a very special guest, Miss Kate Huffnagel, the Digital Wrangler. And if you have missed any segment of the show, I would highly recommend going back and listening, because she is doing something that I don't know of anyone else out there that's doing. And it's basically like, you're organizing your life's work to make sure that you don't leave a mess behind. You don't leave 600 plus hours of estate organization behind for your loved ones when that time comes. And we all think it won't happen to me, but I always say you aren't doing this for you. You're doing this because you love someone. So Kate, thank you for being on the show. I don't want to take much time because you've got a great story to wrap up with. And then we definitely want to talk about what you are able to do for the families that we work with.
Angela, thanks again for having me on your podcast. I'm having so much fun. One thing that I wanted to mention that your generous intro just sparked in my head was we think we have time, right? So I'm going to be 50 next year. And I actually, in my course of my adult life in the last 10 years, have had 2 medical emergencies, including having emergency surgery at 1 o'clock in the morning. And those situations have really helped me focus on, okay, you know what? I'm in charge of household operations in my home. If something happens to me, how's my husband going to make sure that like literally the lights are staying on? How is he going to know what utilities I'm paying and when they're due? Because as head of household operations, I handle all of those things and I handle them all electronically. Having an inventory of all of those utilities or auto ship deliveries that you get sent to the home. And I don't know about you, Angela, but post-pandemic world, I've got a lot more things showing up at the house than I ever had before.
Absolutely.
And some of those things he doesn't pay attention to because they're for me, right? I've got my little wine delivery because he's a bourbon fan. But how is he going to know how to either pay those bills or turn them off because he doesn't need any more of my shampoo showing up at the doorstep or my medications, right?
Or your wine.
Or my wine. So having a list of all of those bills that you are paying and having all of those passwords I advocate with people, if they feel comfortable, to use password managers, because that is really the best way to keep passwords secure, especially if you are practicing good digital hygiene. And by that, I mean you have a different password for every account that you have. And I know we use 3 or 4 like repeatedly. You really don't want to be in that position. Yes, it might make your life easier, but it's not going to keep your online identity secure. So having an inventory, having your passwords organized, preferably with a password manager, or at least in a secure way that your loved ones can find those passwords, is the way to ensure that your loved ones are going to have space to grieve your loss and have it a little bit easier in fulfilling your wishes.
Yes.
Now, there's one thing one more nugget that I want to give your audience. And, there's this law on the books called RUFADA. RUFADA is an acronym for the Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. I know it is a tongue twister. You don't need to know what it stands for. You don't even need to remember RUFADA. But what I want you to know about RUFADA is this is the framework that the Uniform Law Commission has put in place on how digital assets are handled when you become incapacitated or you pass away. Digital assets meaning your devices, your accounts, whether that's Facebook, your Apple ID, your Google email, anything that has a digital component, right? And so what RUFADA says is that you need to designate someone to be in control of your digital assets. So if your legal documents don't have that verbiage, I encourage everyone listening to talk to your estate attorney. And the next time you are updating your legal documents, make sure that you put in some legal verbiage on how you want your digital assets treated.
Absolutely. And Kate, by the way, all of our listeners, if you're not signed up for our weekly life lessons, go on to www.kennedy-financial.com. Get signed up for that, because she wrote a great article on RUFADA, what it's about. This is something that we do address when we do with our legacy planning, but a lot of people just don't understand the importance, and it's highly important. There's a lot of dead people on Facebook, if you really think about it. So this is why. Okay. So it's really important for you to understand what this could do for you and your family. And Kate, I will say you have been totally generous with your time, writing, some commentary for our listeners and the families we work with. And you've also given a great program offer for the Kennedy Financial Services family. And it's a 13% discount off of your 12-week program that you do. And that comes out to like a little under $100 a week. And it's like a step-by-step guided, this is what you do, giving you every checklist, interactive communication, because you're like in a group of 5 people is it. So you're getting, 1 hour of just interaction directly with Kate to answer questions every week. And that's wonderful. And I've also asked you, because I know we have families that say, well, that's great, but I never have the time to do it. And you do one-off services where you're able to help someone individually. So we are so excited to be able to share you with the families we work with, because we think this is important. We talk about helping people live life on purpose and leaving good Christmases and Thanksgivings as your legacy. And one of the best ways to do that is not to have people coming to your tombstone and kicking it because they're mad at you for not getting stuff done. So I would highly recommend that you, take a look at what Kate's doing. We're going to feature in the newsletter this week, and, feel free, go back and listen to this again, share this with everybody. Share it with your family, your parents, your friends, anybody you love, share it with them, because it's an incredibly important thing that we are not doing in this world today and we need to be doing. So Kate, cheers to you for all you're doing. God bless you. Thank you for being on Life Planning 101, and you have a wonderful week. And I pray all of our listeners are blessed with what Kate has been able to share, and it's helping change your family in the future. And one last thing, just remember, Mr. Frosty, it is March, so you better get your estate planning in order.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.